Okay, I'm going to start with some screen sharing. I'm just going to put up an agenda on the screen and leave it there for about 5 minutes, and that may give an opportunity for some other people to come in. So I got to remember how to share my screen. Okay, so I hope you were looking at the agenda there for a few minutes. I'll be going back to that. But anyway, let's see, we've got about 20 people on the call, which is great. That's a really good chunk of the class. And I'm very happy that you joined this meeting. This is an asynchronous course, so we don't have required meetings face to face, even in this form. But I'm very glad that you're here, and I hope this is useful for you going forward. Um, I'm Charles Collier, as you know. Um, I'm a retired professor from the psychology department at URI, and I'm one of the people who founded the Center for Nonviolence and Peace Studies uh, at the university. This course is cross-listed as psychology and NVP, which stands for Nonviolence and Peace Studies. And so the course is sort of on the academic side of that center. And it's part of the tradition of teaching nonviolence that we have at the university. So in this course, there is kind of a heavy dose of nonviolence, the history and the philosophy and the methods. I've always found those parts of peace psychology to be really interesting because they seem so deeply rooted in psychology and in the interest that psychology has in perception and motivation, in emotion, and in social influences on behavior. It's just full of psychology. So I hope those of you who are psychology majors or minors will approach the course as a branch of psychology that is not emphasized greatly, although maybe it should be more. Um, and I hope you'll capture some of the excitement that I have felt for the past 25 or 30 years in getting into this branch of the field and teaching it and trying to help it grow. So let's see. I don't seem to have anybody in the waiting room at the moment. I'm going to share my screen again and just talk through a little bit of that agenda for like 1 minute. And then we'll go to the Brightspace website and I'm just going to give you a little tour of it. So let's see if I can do this again. So the first part of this meeting, I'd like to just take a little tour of the course as it appears on Brightspace. You know, for me, Brightspace is it's a website. It's not the course, but it's the website that sort of is the vehicle for delivering the course. And so we'll take a look at what Brightspace has to offer and also some of its limitations. Then I've got some other things to talk with you about, and I'd like to do a little structured Q&A with you with these questions, and then have more of an open Q&A. I hope you're thinking of things to ask, and if there are questions you have that don't get asked, please bring them up toward the end, and we'll have a more open discussion about that. So let me stop this share and instead try to share our Brightspace website. Oh, excuse me. I guess I've allowed too much time to go by. I've just recently been instructed on this authenticator system, so the new system seems a little clunkier than the old system to me so far, but I guess I'm getting used to it. Stay signed in. Okay. Do you see the front page of our website? I've set it up pretty much the way you would see it. There is another view that I have as an instructor that has a few more bells and whistles, but let me show it to you the way you will probably see it. The front page, oh, at the top of the page, there are these links to the course home, which is basically what we see here, then content. And notice that in Brightspace, you can make the table of contents visual. So the different sections of content are laid out in these visual links on the front page of the website. And let me just try to review what you'll see here. How to get started and what to do next. That's a link that you should go to do what it says, to find out how to get started. And that's a link. It's on the front page of the website, but it's also up here in content. All of those visual links are laid out textually here on the left side of the, and let's go to how to get started and what to do next. That's probably what you've been looking at the last few days. And I hope this link worked to get you here. I assume that that's the way you got here. Now, after week 1, the semester is organized into 4 modules, and there are 4 links in content that sort of constitute a syllabus for what we're going to be studying. And let's just look at one of them. Let's look at Module 1. That will start on Monday. Module 1 starts on Monday, May 25th. And there are just some suggested things from me about how to do your work in each week. These are suggested work plans. These may not be completely appropriate for you because of your schedule, but this is sort of an idea of how you could stay on track week by week and do the readings, do the posting, and get your work done. So there's a week 1, and week 1 is what we're in now. Week 2 is what's described right in front of you here. That's May 25th to June 7th. And then June 1st to June 7th is week 3. And those 2 weeks, 2 and 3, constitute our first module. The first module is what we're going to be studying is violence from a psychological perspective. We're going to be looking at basically causes and effects of violence and some other aspects of violence that are very useful to know from a psychological point of view. If you're interested in knowing violence deeply enough to be able to prevent it or to intervene in it, this is some of the topics that I think are very important for a person with those interests. Go back to course home. So you can get to that module 1 information from the front page with this link. And then the course proceeds to module 2, which is about psychology of violence, of nonviolence. Module 3, conflict outcomes and struggle, policy and culture is the last module. And then you can also get at some other resources from this front page or from the content tab, which says the same links. There's a set of non-textbook readings. These are going to be reading assignments that are not from the 2 textbooks that I'm asking you to get. And the non-textbook readings they're organized a little strangely here. If you click on this link, you get a title, non-textbook readings, but then the actual readings are organized by module, and you have to open up the modules to see what the links what the actual readings are. So I've opened up the link for the first module, Psychology of Violence. And one of the important readings in the course, in fact, is this one by Gilligan, Shame, Guilt, and Violence. If you click on that, you'll finally see the reading. Okay, so you have to go through a few steps here, but there are a number of readings associated with Module 1. I think you're probably going to have to be reading something in the course just about every day. Where the course is like 10 weeks long. It's only 70 days total, and we're already in the fourth day. But you should be reading every day. Now, two of the readings in Module 1 are McNair chapters 1 and 2. McNair is one of our textbooks, and you've had to order those textbooks. Maybe you don't have it in your hands yet, but here's a PDF that has McNair's chapter 1 and 2, so that you can get started. And the McNair textbook helps me to organize the different modules in the course. Basically, each of the 4 modules is built on 2 of her chapters as a foundation. So there's lots to do here. I think you're probably going to want to follow those suggested work plans to stay safely in the rowboat as we navigate this course. And my conception is that you might do some reading for an hour or 2 one day, then the next day post your thoughts about that reading and maybe reply to another student, then read another assigned reading, then post on it, then read another assigned reading, post on it. A week of your work should look something like that, alternately reading and posting with a lot of your own thinking in between. The kind of writing I'm asking for occurs in discussions week by week. I want it to be on the discussion board at least 3 times, 3 days during the week. And then at the end of each module, there's a reflection paper that's under assignments. So let's take a look at those tabs just briefly. Here's discussions. A lot of you have already introduced yourselves here. The who's here, I guess, thread is the first thing in discussions. And then once we get into Module 1, there's a thread for every assigned reading. And some of the assigned readings are really assigned videos. There's a video here that has a thread, and I'd like your thoughts on that. So during the first 2 weeks of the course, really, weeks 2 and 3, we're going to be studying the psychology of violence. Here are the 2 chapters from the McNair book on violence itself. One is focusing on causes of violence. The other is focusing on effects of violence. A non-text reading that I think is very important is that one I mentioned by Gilligan. And Gilligan adds a lot of depth to the psychology of violence. And I think he's saying things that are a little deeper and even stronger than McNair's analysis. The same might be said of the work by Irving Janis on groupthink. This has to do with how group dynamics can influence decisions about committing violence. Then I'd like to start using World War I as sort of a case to analyze a little bit. I'm going to send you out to learn something about World War I and post your thoughts about it. Then there's a reading by Barbara Tuchman called The Guns of August from a very famous book of hers. And what will strike you as a psychology student is how psychological her analysis is of how World War I started. Then there's a rather interesting story from within World War I called The Christmas Truce. There's a little video about that, and there's lots and lots to read about it if you go out looking for information. And finally, there's a very broad view of violence provided by Steven Pinker, and he has some rather interesting things to say about violence that may surprise you. He takes a very broad view and looks at thousands of years of history to try to address the question, has violence increased or decreased in human history? So what I've just gone through is kind of a narrative of Module 1. And I hope at the end of each module, you'll have a narrative of what you got out of the module that you'll be able to write up in a short reflection paper. I'll say a little bit more soon about what I'd like to see in your writing, but basically that's a little bit of the course there, Module 1, and we're going to repeat that through 3 other modules that make up the course. Now, let me go over to assignments. There are 5 assignments, and each of them is what I call a reflection paper. The first one is due pretty soon. I've assigned you to watch an interview that I did with an Indian journalist, Rajni Bakshi, a few years ago. And that interview is it ended up being kind of an introduction to nonviolence education. So I'd like you to write a little paper about that, because the interview covers a number of topics that relate very closely to the course and that I think might pique your interest. Then at the end of each module, there's a reflection paper that's due on the last day of the module. So the reflection paper on psychology of violence, which is module 1, that's due on June 7th. The reflection paper on psychology of nonviolence, that's a 3-week module that ends on June 28th. And a paper will be due then. And then the next module is called Conflict Outcomes. The due date for the reflection paper is July 12th. And the final module is called Policy and Culture. And the due date is July 26th. That'll take us pretty much to the end of the course and the end of the summer session. And I've got to have your work by then, because they don't give me very much time to report grades, especially in the summer. Those discussions and the assignments, those are the 2 ways you earn points toward your grade. So let me see, what else should I point out to you? Look, there's a class list that tells you everybody that's in the class. And I have mixed feelings about the class list, because it also I mean, it's very useful to me for looking you up, but the it's also it also tries to be an email system, and the email within Brightspace for me does not work very well. It's okay for me to send out a group email so that I can reach everyone, but it is terrible on my side if you're trying to get in touch with me through Brightspace. I would prefer that you use my university email, which is just collier.uri.edu. It's very simple, and I've put instructions on that in 2 or 3 places that you'll see. So you'll receive email from me from Brightspace using the system that you see in front of you. But I don't like to receive emails this way because I have to go through a search operation that is not very user friendly. And there's a chance that you'll be trying to tell me something and I won't get the message. So please use my regular university email, which is outside of Brightspace. Let's see. Okay, one final thing while we're in this screen share. I'm going to go back to content and show you what's in the overview part at the very top of content. This is a little spreadsheet that I made, and I'll be glad to send out a blank version of this if it's more useful to you. But I wanted to show you this to illustrate the way you should do your posting. Now, the shaded days in this little calendar, notice that this is basically a calendar showing the 10 weeks of the course. And what I'm looking for from you starting in week 2 is for you to post at least 3 times a week and a total of at least 6 posts each week. And the workload that I described previously, where you might spend Monday reading and then do a couple of posts on Tuesday, and then spend Wednesday reading and do another couple of posts on Thursday, something like that. That the posting times, the times when you go online and show up where I can see you, those are the shaded days. This is for a hypothetical student who is earning full credit in the course. Full credit because they're posting at least 3 times each week, and hypothetically they are posting 6 times in those 3 days. So over here on the right, I have 3 days, 6 posts, and in my grading system, I add up the number of days when you showed up and the number of posts that you did, and I get a total of 9. There are 9 points available every week from week 2 to week 10. So what you have to do to really get the course under control is to clear some other things off your schedule and just make sure that you can be on the website 3 times a week and get your 6 posts in each week. And those posts have to be good quality as well. You can't just show up and dash off a few words and expect to get credit. What I want you to be doing is reading each assigned chapter or paper or video and thinking about it and then posting your thoughts, not a summary of the reading, but your thoughts about the main ideas that stuck out to you. I'm going to take this screen share down. The assigned readings and videos have been chosen for their value in constructing an understanding of this material on peace psychology. And each of the assigned readings or videos contains one or more major ideas that I think really contribute to the course and are the reason for that reading being part of your assigned work. So as you read or as you watch a video, you should be looking for those major ideas. And part of my work is looking at what you have to say and seeing if you found them. And one way that work can sort of be less than great is for your post in discussions or your reflection paper to refer to an idea that's on the first page of the reading, but that is not the major idea of the reading. And if you sort of chase those squirrels, they're easy to spot and miss the main ideas. You're not going to get as much credit as you could get. Now, I'm not asking you to read my mind in figuring out major ideas. If you read something and you see that the author is sort of proposing something new, but that there's something else that he or she said that really struck a chord with you because it related to your own experience, then write about that. But I want to see that the specific ideas did come from the reading I assigned you. I want to be convinced that you did the reading and you thought about it. And then I also want to know your thoughts about it. I don't want to get a summary of the reading. It's very easy to get summaries nowadays, and I don't want to read 50 summaries of the same article that I already know very well. I'd like to know what your thoughts are, and that's why the assignments are called reflection papers, and that's the same spirit that I want for the discussion posts. So in a discussion post where you're writing really about just one assigned chapter or paper or video, I want to see what specific ideas you chose to write about. And the specific ideas should convince me that, yeah, that student read the paper. Nowadays, sometimes I get writing from students, not always, but sometimes, that is very general and very vague. And it could have come from anywhere. And it's not recognizably from what I assigned the student to read. And when I see something like that, it might be well written in terms of grammar and stuff. And the general ideas might be sort of related to the course, but I'm not going to give credit for it because it's not what I asked you to do. I'm asking you to write your thoughts, including your reactions to specific ideas. from the sources that I assigned you to work on. And in my mind, that's just fair. And I think by the end of the course, you'll probably say, yeah, that was fair. And it made me pay attention to what he was asking me to do. But at the beginning, it might sound like I'm asking you to do a lot of hard work. I'm asking you to put in a fair amount of time, but I don't think the work itself is terribly hard. You will have to practice at observing your own thoughts. So a lot of people are not used to doing that. And I want you to take a moment and reflect about what you've read and how it relates to you and your experience and other courses that you've taken or problems that you have, or things that help you understand something better, or things that surprise you. And I'm talking about you as an individual, not ideas that you think might be surprising to the world at large. Don't you don't have to be that ambitious, but I'm really interested in you going through a process that I am absolutely convinced will be of great value to you educationally. And this is the way to do it. In just stepping back now, just as a psychologist for a moment, in the psychology of learning and memory, there are a handful of principles that are really strong factors in predicting whether a person will get anything out of what they read or study. And some of those factors are built into this course. They are meant to facilitate, you know, the quality of your learning and also the level of comfort and enjoyment that you have in studying this material. So one factor is the distribution of effort throughout the week. You know, I'm asking you to show up on the website and do some posting 3 days out of every 7, at least. And that principle of distribution of effort, that leads to better memory, better understanding, better enjoyment of material, and the superiority of distributed effort over cramming has been known for over 175 years. We've got research on it going back a long way. But how do you build distribution of effort into an online course? Well, it may be clunky, but what I've done is to ask you to show up at least 3 times a week. And that also helps to solve another problem, which is that left to their own scheduling, many students will wait until the very last day of the week and try to do all of their posting then. But those posts tend to be rather shallow and rushed and not very interesting. And because they're all coming in at the last minute, the student has not made themselves available to other students to reply to their work during the week. So in my grading scheme, if you do wait until Sunday, the last day of the week, to do all your 6 of your posts, you'll get 6 points for the posts and 1 point for the day. That's a total of 7. But each week has 9 possible points, and a 7 is only a C in that grading scheme. All 9 points would be an A for the week, 8 points would be a B, and 7 points would only be a C. Some people's work schedules force them into that pattern, but it's not the best pattern from a learning point of view. Another factor that is very strong in the psychology of learning is called elaborative rehearsal. And that means that, information washes over you all the time, and you're not going to remember very much of it. But the stuff that does get remembered is the information that you reflect upon. And reflection is a form of what's called elaboration. It's meant to help you really get the ideas into your memory system and also feel more comfortable with them. So I could go on and do a lecture on psychology of learning, but I won't do that. I just want you to understand that some aspects of the course that you're going to encounter do have a rationale, and there's, I think, good reasons for having them that way. So you should get in your mind and in your calendar that each week starts on a Monday and ends on a Sunday. So the deadline for weekly work is usually Sunday evening. And what I try to do, I'm not always successful, but I try the next morning to put out a report. I'll send you an email just reporting that grades have been posted for the previous week so that you can go and check them. And each week I'll ask you to get in touch with me right away if you think I've made a mistake in your grade. So keep track of when and how much you post, because that's a record that you can keep that can help sometimes correct me when I've made a mistake in counting your posts or counting your days. I've talked about how that point system works. I've talked a little bit about good discussion posts, meaning that, I'm looking for you to find specific ideas that are recognizably from the assigned source and give your thoughts about them. In a reflection paper at the end of the module, I'd like you to bring those reflections together. I'd like you to talk about sort of what narrative of important ideas stood out to you from the whole module and what you think about it. And that's a point in a reflection paper. You can make an assessment of how much you learned from the module or how much you already knew and did not find surprising, or how much of it you disagreed with. It's what you write is completely up to you, and I'm not going to try in the course to tell you what to think. I'm very interested in what you think about this material. And I think for many people, this material is new enough. They will be surprised by a lot of it. And they will find points of contact with things that they already know, but points of contact that are enriching. And I hope that that's the way it comes across to you. Now, what does poor performance in the course look like? That's this last little structured question. Basically, poor performance might take the form of a student disappearing and not posting and not handing in papers. And then in the spreadsheet that I keep week by week, that student is starting to have zeros where there should be points. And at the end of the course, there's some points that just can't be made up because discussion points are part of conversations that are going on in the class. during particular weeks. And once those weeks and modules are over, the conversations are over. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to try to catch up on your part of a conversation that's already over. It is possible to make up reflection papers, and I do that to a limited extent. But the course is designed for steady work all the way through. It's not really designed for catch-up work. It's not designed with exams where you can do a make-up exam. There really are no exams in this course. There's just steady thinking and posting and writing papers all the way through. So last semester, I had a class of about 66 students. And a couple of people did fail, but they were people who disappeared early in the course and didn't show up and didn't drop, so they were still on the class list. And that doesn't have to happen. The point system that I use is a little, as I said, it's a little bit clunky, but it's designed so that if you work it week by week, you can earn all of the points that are available without, doing magic or without doing superhuman work. But there's another kind of poor performance that's troubling. It's where you don't take yourself seriously as a thinker, and you don't really follow through on the idea of reading and reflecting and picking out important ideas. And so your work tries to run shortcuts around that. And you're not going to get full credit for that kind of writing. If you use AI to help you understand things, a lot of that's invisible to me. But don't cheat yourself by letting AI write your papers, because you won't be able to get the kind of reflective, insightful papers that I get from most of my students. And I think it's unfortunate that you're missing part of the learning process that I'm hoping for you. So that kind of poor performance it's a little bit painful to watch, but it does happen with some folks. And I sometimes have good conversations too late in the course with students where I think they really have a light bulb go on and they understand what they should have done. And I'm glad that the light bulb finally goes on, but it's unfortunate that sometimes it happens too late to save their grade. So I'd like you to get energized and work a schedule that works for you, and realize that you can't do something like this, taking a summer course, without it affecting how you use your time. And that was something somebody said to me one time. They said, "Okay, you're going to write a book." Okay. I've written a few books, but one of the editors I worked with said something really wise to me when I signed my contract to write the book. He says, "Now your time is going to be different. You only have 24 hours in a day. And yesterday you didn't have a book contract. Today you do. And you're going to have to devote some of your time to the book. And that means that other things that you used to spend time on might have to go." at least for a few years, or in the case of a course, a few weeks. So I see that many students take on an enormous workload, and I worry about that because it's really much better to do a few things well and enjoy them than to try to do many things to the point where you do not have the bandwidth to do them all to a high level of quality and a high level of enjoyment. So please give this course enough time so that you can do well and really enjoy the ideas and and have a comfort level with them that that you're happy with. I see Victoria's hand up. Yeah, Victoria, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
Oh, okay. You didn't have a question?
I have a question, but I can wait until the end of the discussion or
Well,
class.
we're sort of in the open part of our discussion now. So what's your question?
It was more about the syllabus. So in the modules, so in the beginning of your thing, it said comment twice a day, 3 times a week.
That's what most students fall into. They pick 3 days a week, and on each day they post twice.
Right.
So
So
that, yeah.
it does, when you're talking about that, I guess I was just wondering, like, is that commenting to other people, or is that commenting on the same one that I wrote about?
Well, what I want is for about half of your posts to be direct responses to the assigned reading, and the other half can be replies to other students.
Okay. Um,
Okay, but
yeah, so then the other question I had was there's like all different titles. So module one, I know that's due from June, wait, no, May, starts May 25th to June 7th or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
So that one, there's different, like, clicked like on module one in the discussions area, there's all these different things. Am I going through in those 2 weeks and writing on each of those things?
yeah, yeah.
So what if
There's
I
a
don't, then that's like 5 or 6 different discussions in one module, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
something
if
like
I,
that.
so am I writing 2 things 3 times a day on one of those individual topics?
Well, the first reading is McNair's chapter 1. Okay, so I think what I'd like to see from most students is a post on an idea, a specific idea from that chapter, and your thoughts about it. And then another post that's a reply to another student. It could be that other student could also maybe be commenting on chapter 1, but they might be writing on some other thread. So you've got a lot of freedom in how you do the work, but the amount of work is something you should really pay attention to because that's where you earn the points. And and I'm not trying to be mean. I just know that when you do enough work, it starts to grab you, especially this material in peace psychology.
I guess I'm just confused because I'm like, so you want us to post on just one of the module topics three
I
times a
want
week?
you, no, I want you to, by the end of the module, I'm hoping that
Hmm.
you'll post in every thread in the module,
Yeah.
at
And
least
then,
once.
okay.
Okay.
And those threads, are those due on the end of the module date, basically?
The posting I count week by week because I want you to be working steadily.
Okay.
So I'm going to look at whether you posted 6 times during week 2
Hmm.
and spread your posts over at least 3 days. And if you did, I'm going to give you 9 points. So 3 points for the days, 6 points for the posts, adding up to 9.
Okay.
Okay, and the same with week 3. Okay.
And then
Again,
the
I'm going to,
labels on each of them are the coinciding readings or videos we're watching, or mostly readings. It's mostly all reading, right?
it's mostly reading, but there are some videos in the course. And there are 2 full-length movies later on in the course. So,
Okay. Thank you.
okay. I hope I've answered your question, Victoria, because I sense a little uneasiness about the how you're supposed to organize your work.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit because I'm like, okay, I'm like I have to write like one post, then I don't know. I'm just like a little bit because I know the modules, I know there's like week 1, week 2, week 3, but the modules go by like chunks that are a little bit different and then like then there's
Module,
also other
yeah.
assignments. So I'm just like a little bit, I guess you could say overwhelmed.
Well, here's the way it goes. Module 1 is called the Psychology of Violence, and it's a 2-week module. So weeks 2 and 3 make up Module 1. Okay. Module 2 is called the Psychology of Nonviolence, and it's really the heart of the course. It's a 3-week module. It's weeks 4, 5, and 6. And then week 4, or after that, we've got 2 other modules, and each of them is 2 weeks long. Okay, so there's nothing magical about modules. They're just numbers of weeks where we have one sort of super topic that we're
Yeah.
working on during that
And
time.
and they're just the modules are just being referred to as the discussions.
Well, there are discussions that are organized by module. Okay, so for module 1, there's a set of threads in discussions, and each thread is for an assigned reading or video. Um,
Right.
so during weeks 2 and 3, I'd like you to try to aim for responding and posting in each of those threads for all of those reading.
Okay.
Now, if something happens and you have to, you have to choose between working on this course and doing something else that you have to do, you might miss posting on something. And then you might not have anything to say about it in your reflection paper, and you might lose a point. If that's the worst that happens, it's not the end of the world. That's just a point. But I'd like you to aim high, try to post on all of the threads, and then just life happens. But aim high and try to do it all. Okay.
Post on all the threads and then at least 1 or 2 responses on each of those threads.
The pattern I think works best for people is to post once in direct response to a reading, and then once in reply to another student,
Okay.
and
All
then
right.
to do that 3 times during the week.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I apologize. My voice is scratchy this evening, and I hope I'm understandable. Um, some questions may be arising because I'm not saying things as well as I could be. But please let me know what your questions are. Anybody? Okay. Well, I hope I haven't worn you out. Um, uh, I've made a recording of this meeting, and I'm going to make that available to you with a link in the content section of Brightspace. And that should be up there sometime later this evening or tomorrow. But again, thank you for being here this evening, and I hope you're all off to a good start in the course.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Right.